All right, this is a video for Flatbot. This is gonna be the same for the DIY as well as the already colored in bot. So all the parts are labeled on the inside. So all the text goes on the inside here. If you look, the body front, body right, body left, top and bottom. These two pieces here, the left and the right side, you want to use the front as the gauge, because what I just found out is the body back position. The text, I thought I lined them all so the text is going up for everything just like that, and it would fold this way. This one is actually upside down. So as you fold these up, and this guy, it's a friction fit. It's a loose friction fit. What we're finding that when we first developed this, the friction fit almost got too tight for this thin of wood. So basically what we had to do was kind of make some compromises. As you can see, it's a little tricky, but once everything is kind of lined up, you get the body back panel upside down. If you notice, these notches here line up with just perfect with right here. So it's okay if one of the panels falls, but basically you want to get all these to lock. So I see that this, oh boy, it is, I was hoping for a better experience. This is the first go at this. So here you go. If you notice, these sides are inset to the body. There we go. So if you, the sides are inset, meaning around here, the front, all I wanted to see is the tabs there. So this is the body completed. Notice the legs are there. I am going to wood glue this. You probably will have to as well. There's some variances and tolerances here. But basically that's kind of the body forming right there. I'll move on to the head next. So there's two big boxes and the rest are these flat pieces that kind of stick together. I would advise gluing the arms and the legs and the feet all together as well. So I'll move on to the next and I'll show you how to put the head and the following stuff together. All right, for gluing this, just take a little dab, just right on the edge here. This is just basic wood glue. That's what I would advise. Wood glue is by far the strongest. So my approach for this, knowing kind of what you need to do, is slide it from the side first and then go up. There might be some overage of glue on the side. Just definitely use your finger here. I'll be painting this anyway, so that's not a big deal. And then kind of work your way around, basically gluing the tiny little tabs here. You don't need a lot of glue. I put way too much, but that it can all be wiped off. So you're going to slide this in there, slide that up. And the hope is, and remember, the body back is upside down. Don't know what happens. So this is going to be flipped this way. So knowing that, and knowing kind of the connection points, I would glue along the edges here, and then here as well. So you can tell the glue already is helping. I didn't mean to glue on those edges actually. That's okay, it's just wood glue, just wiping that off, not a problem. And then I will probably, once it's all together, do not sand these pieces beforehand because the tolerances will get even worse. Do it after the fact once it's all together. So body bottom is kind of the same, it just folds right into there. So we're gonna do this, gonna glue, so just keep in mind, the edges, not the tabs, the edges is what I learned. These edges here is what I want to glue. And then knowing that I have the top here as well, gonna glue this. So gonna slide this into here. And you might need to lift this up just a tiny bit, but it should be a pretty snug fit. That's the goal, is you want this to be snug. Wipe all the excess glue. Glue's super easy to do when it's dry. Now you can go for the top. So body top, always do a test fit, but basically it just slides right in there. So I'm gonna glue the edges here and here. No need to glue the tabs. Those kind of nest in there. This glue is gonna be plenty strong. And the glue that I'm using is just basic tight bond wood glue. This stuff is outdoor, indoor. I don't think your robot will be outside. I would not encourage to do that. But if you paint it with the right paint and kind of protect it, you should be fine. You don't really need to clamp this once it's all together, but as you look around, you can kind of see, clean up some edges. I will be painting and sanding this. This is going to be part of the pre-painted Flatbots. So this is what the completed body looks like without some finishing and stuff. I'm just going to set it off on the corner here and move on to the head. If you notice on the head, what I did was indicate here, face. So that is the front of the robot, essentially. So the face will be nesting right into here, just like that. So what you can do, I encourage doing a dry fit. This one I did much better as far as directing kind of what things are what and what direction. So that's the side of the head. And if you saw the arrow on the inside, it says up. I'm knowing this is the top of the head here. I'm going to slide this into here. Those will come together. And then other side of the head also has the arrow up here. So that's going to slide into there. Much better. And then I would encourage to do the face or the bottom of the head to really get it all together. Notice this one also has the indication of the arrow of the face. So I'm going to snap this into here. And there we have the head minus the back. One thing to remember is there is a piece of plexiglass that goes inside the face on the inside. So you can do it. It's much easier if you do it with the top of the head off and not the back. But basically, if you look at this again, this is the back of the head. This one I did not indicate up, but I am assuming that I did it well enough that it should all just kind of snap together. Right, almost here. These tolerances are much tighter than the body. So it actually holds together much better as a friction fit, but it's not perfect. So basically, when you're gonna glue it, make sure to not glue the top of the head, especially if you want to put a little LED light in these, because there is plexiglass that is, the trick that you can see light through it. It's opaque, but light can go through. So I would encourage a small plexiglass battery powered light, but there's the whole head completed. I'll show you how I glue it together just in the next clip. So that's what it looks like. And then the yellow plexiglass will go in there. All right, gluing. So after you dry fit this, remember the tabs, you don't want to get glue on the tabs here. It's strictly, you know, the edges that will be glued. So anything that's recessed here. So I'm going to get this little portion here. I would also encourage not to put glue on any of the panels that you're going to be removing to put glue onto. So just a tiny dab of glue is all you need. And just go here and rest that down. Wipe off the excess glue. So that bottom piece is glued together. Knowing that I'm going to put the face on as well. So basically I'm going to glue all but the top. The reason being, I want to keep the top loose so then I can lift off the panel and put a light in there as needed if I want to. So next I will do the face because I want to keep the integrity of the box as strong as possible. So basically what I'm hoping to do is if I glue the face in, and the face doesn't have an indication of which face is out. So just keep in mind when you dry fit how it goes. So I remember this, so I'll lift this off that way. And then I'm gonna glue remember, don't glue the top of the head. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna get this little part right there, because that's where the bottom of the face is. That is a crucial part of the face. I got a little glue on the tab, not a big deal. Do not glue the top. I think there we go. And there we go. So very tight friction fit there. The bottom of the head just popped off. So you want to keep it clamped. One thing I would recommend, blue tape could be a fantastic way of just kind of keeping things together as you do them. Right now it's kind of an awkward phase. I attached the bottom and the face together, so they're pretty steady. The face is attached to the sides. what I would do next is work my way to the back of the head, pull this off, knowing that there's no glue. Remember, avoid glue on the head, the top of the head, if you want to remove it as a panel and put in. But if you don't plan on putting a light, make sure you put in the plexiglass. Don't worry about these little tabs up there. I think you're more than fine to leave that off. This glue will carry you through, no problem. I don't know if let's see, flip it this way. Lift that up a little bit. Just trying to get this thing to nest. Is it? Oh, it might be this way. It was very challenging laying this thing out. So I basically designed this whole thing in a 2D space. All this was laid out in Illustrator. All the cut lines for the laser was done in Illustrator. So it was the tolerances, I had to get it exact. In some cases, I did it a little bit too tight. Okay, now that I know the back and the bottom of the head are attached, I will just put a little strip of tape here. You can put it fairly taut. Essentially, the whole head is together because remember we glued the face on this edge here. We just glued that here. So this panel and the bottom is secure. This panel is secure all but the top. So I can easily go here as well. Go over to this side, thinking about, okay, I did glue all these edges. So just the 3 edges. Put tape on the bottom as well. And remember, do not sand until after it's assembled. So now the only thing that should pop off is the top of the head. And you can see on the inside here, there's glue marks there, there, and there. So we have all the panels glued how we need it to. So I'm gonna leave this off to dry, same as the body as it's drying. The body was small enough that the panels tend to just stick together. So we're looking good there, very solid. I'm gonna move on to all the flat stuff. This is where the Flatbot comes into play. Flat arms, flat feet, flat legs. So move on to that and I'll show you how to assemble those. Okay, we're gonna move on to the feet. The feet are a little different, especially on the DIY. The wood is very hard to identify what goes where. So one thing to keep in mind, this is the top of the foot. So this goes on like that. This was all designed so that the feet or the legs, when they get put in there, so these are the legs here. So you should have 4 of these. They're completely flat, they're the same on both sides. There doesn't matter left or right. But the idea is there's long pins and short. The long ones go all the way through. So one trick that I found, if you go into here and wedge that in there, you notice that there is an 1/8 inch left for then this to stick in there. If you notice, this friction fit is pretty tight. The leg holds it on its own. This is part of the shoe. So this will go right in this tab here. That one is also a very tight fit. If for some reason things are not going in, you can always sand a tiny, tiny bit. I would advise not to and see if you could just friction fit, press it in there. So the legs are exactly the same. So the single square is the bottom, the one with 2, a square and a rectangle is on the top. This together. So what I could advise too is gluing these legs together ahead of time so they don't shimmy, but they should go in without needing of glue at all. And let's see. So as long as these are lined up close, what I say is first go into the top one here, level them off so it's flush fit, and then go onto here, and then that comes together. So then this little tab will go right into here. It's kind of hard to work around. You get the idea. So basically what I'm going to do next, I'll show you basically the glue, but definitely, there we go. This one is much tighter of a fit. overall. If you see it, hold it on the legs and nothing happens. You want to make sure that here is completely flush on the soles here. So this is supposed to be flush and not recessed at all. If it is recessed, then you need to flip this over because this is that goes into the body portion. Next, move up to the arms. So the arms, there's two different arms. One is a curved arm facing down. So those go together. You just need to glue those together. The other is curved facing up, the waving arm. And then the neck. So this says neck and back. So it doesn't really matter. They're the same piece, but basically this is the support. So these three pieces are the last components to really bring this together. So if you look, the body goes here, the arms go into the side of the body, and then the head rests with the neck. So all the connection points are essentially going to the body. So the body is nice because it's very rigid and secure and tiny, where the challenge is he has a giant noggin. So I'll work you through this next step here. Okay, so for the arms, the legs, the feet, the tiny little bead here and here. This one is pretty crucial to make sure they're lined up exactly. So what I like to do is put some glue in there, let the friction of the glue like start pushing and clamping, get it lined up so all the tabs are equal. And you can do a test fit inside the body as well. That is a very, very tight fit. So you have a good idea of how things are supposed to be lined up. So that is basically the arm done. What I would encourage is you can either put it under kind of a clamp, even like a simple clamp that you use for offices. You can use for these. This will dry really, really fast. It's so thin and it doesn't need a whole lot of strength. So go and make sure you're just hitting the insides. What I would have done differently on this one, I would have put this on the inside, so I would have flipped it so the gluing surface is there. But being this is a DIY, these laser burns aren't a big deal. Hopefully none of yours have any sort of extreme laser burn. Did do a pretty good quality check for anything like that. I do have spare parts, so if for some reason you have an issue with any of them, just let me know and I can mail you some spare parts. Or if you break them or something like that, that's not a problem. I'm happy to send you something to replace. So get these lined up. The main thing you want lined up are these tabs here. So as long as these are lined up, it doesn't matter which side of the body. The box here is the same. So if you want to get the arms in, you want to make sure that these stay aligned. So right there. And then you can adjust as needed once it's in there. So pretty good. As long as it's equal on both sides, I think that's working pretty well. So that works for me. Let's see if we can get this down just a tiny bit. Make sure and then I will be sanding very lightly. Make sure on the arms and the legs, the connection points, you don't sand these down. They will get looser and looser. Sand only the exposed that is not crucial in attachment. Same with this. Do not sand this notch. So the neck, very simple, these two pieces. The text goes inwards. So I'm just going to do this, going to line this up. Cool thing about having the body here and it's together, it allows for, so it's equal. This is the same piece, top and bottom, the same notches, top and bottom. So it really, directionally, it shouldn't matter. If you want to have a gauge, just to make sure there's text on the inside of this, as long as that's facing up. So in the up position here, I'm going to put that right in there. Don't glue anything yet until these pieces are fully dried. Then we'll move on to the legs. So legs don't have any inside or out, they're equal. So just a tiny bit here. Oh boy. So just lining everything up and making sure that this piece is as equal as possible. Again, you can always test by, remember the short end is the one that goes into the body, the long end goes into the foot. So you can always do a quick test, make sure you're getting everything lined up right and snapped in and ready to go. And then these key points, the legs are kind of, the leg and the neck are kind of the two pivotal points to make this as strong as possible. So I would say make sure that these are lined up, but also make sure to get a very secure gluing point for the leg portion that goes in here, this little notch. So don't sand. Remember, do not sand this tab at all. Leave that alone. That will only decrease the size of the friction fit. And the front and the back of the tabs also do not sand. That will reduce the thickness of the wood. So I stick this right in here. It is a very, very tight fit by design. If for some reason it's too tight, you can definitely sand a tiny bit, but I would really encourage trying to get it in there without sanding, because it will fit. It is designed, the tolerances are just very, very tight. So that's what the legs look like. You want them facing out. So on the bottom here of these, you notice the squares are facing out. That's what you want to kind of keep that. So it keeps the legs facing out that way. Moving on to the feet. Remember, the single square right here is the bottom of the foot. And then line these up here. Definitely clamp and push as hard as you can. Squeeze out whatever glue so it comes out. So basically what I like to do with wood glue is you kind of shimmy it side to side until it kind of rests. This one is perfectly aligned in the square. So to do a test, this also will help the feet and the legs kind of come together as I slid that right on there. I'm not gluing the foot to that yet, but even if you notice that this is a tight fit, but there is still some play. So definitely I would encourage you to put some glue at the base and let that dry. If you're gonna paint it after the fact or before, but I would encourage painting after, because glue marks can be a real thing. Plus you don't wanna get paint on the matting surfaces or the mating surfaces of the robot. So remember, single square for the sole on the bottom. The good idea is this is a tongue tab of the shoe. There is a little glue on the inside here. Not a huge deal, as long as everything lines up. Should be fine, but being that the glue is still wet, I should be able to push this right through. There we go. Very, very tight fit, but there we go. See? So I'm gonna glue the tongue, and then eventually I will glue the legs all together as one, and not attach them, glue them until the body, till these are done. Reason being is if you have to adjust this, taking the legs out of here multiple times, the least amount of times you can take in and out of the connection points, the better. It'll keep it tight. Cool, so that is the basic layout of how to glue things. Now will come final assembly with the robot. This is the protective covering, or not the cover, this is actually what makes the color of the robot face yellow. So it took me a little while, but peel off the corner right here, peel off the protective side. You have to do it on both before you put it in, because it does add thickness. So just be careful when you actually put it in the face of the robot. So basically, with the face of the robot here, you're gonna slide this in, get as close as to the front of the face as possible. And then there is little tiny notches on the plexi. So if I push this in, you want this plexi to actually go all the way flush with the bottom face of the robot here. So if you look, the plexi goes all the way down. This is a friction fit, so you should be fine. So if you look, if you actually got a light in there, I don't know if you can get that. It lights up So pretty neat. You can throw a little light inside of there. You want it to be as flush as possible. So you might need to sand a little bit of the plexi on the side to slide it in. This one is a perfect flex fit or flush fit in there. It did push, I'm noticing here, it did push this gap a little bigger, maybe by a 16th, maybe a 32nd. But you can see a little bit of light through here. But basically that's what it looks like on the inside. Remember I said do not glue the top of the head because you wanted to put in that, but that is a finished head right here. So I'll leave the tape on for a few more minutes, but basically this has been gluing now. So what I would say, there is no difference between the left and the right feet, so they're exactly the same. So once you know kind of what the robot will be, once you know how you assembled and glued and had everything set, one thing to keep in mind is how these are facing. So the squares here, you want, that means this angle, that angle, this is the front here. So because this is labeled on the inside, you can't really see it, but just keep in mind the legs need to face out. I think it's contrapposto is what they call it. I think it's in ballet or something like that. Anyway, so he's kind of toed out like that. So once you remember that, go ahead and you can put glue over the whole thing if you want, anywhere you want, as well as the front and the back. Here, I would dab a little bit of that off. And then I'm just gonna slide that in here. So with the excess glue, I would encourage getting something like a razor and just kind of scraping that off right on the edge here, and then getting her here. Because this is a DIY kit, it's much easier to be a little more messy. That's that side. And so now I'm going to move on to this one, do the same thing. No reason to glue the top, but I got a little glue on there. So this is such a tight fit, putting a lot of glue really won't help much. And just pound it down there as much as you can. So again, if you want to get as flush as possible, you want the mating surface to be, there would be no gaps here. So once it's there, get this razor blade. And then scrape this over here as well. And this is all sandable after it's all assembled. That's not a problem. We just want to avoid the joints. I left the tongue on the shoes, I left those not glued in for the reason, if I wanted to do a really cool custom overall look of the shoe and then do the tongue a different color, it's much easier to paint this whole flat surface and then just hit this with its own individual. So it's not a big deal. I would be careful at wrenching these out because these are probably the tightest fit, but just gonna leave and then kind of make sure this is as tight. So encourage you to leave it upside down and try to put some pressure as it's gluing. So leave that guy upside down to dry. Then once this is dried, I would encourage flipping him over, gluing in the arms. It's up to you which arm you want to be up, which side, which one you want to be up or down. I think I designed it so his left arm, so this is his left, would be the one waving, but you're more than welcome to flip it this way. The clearance, the tolerances are exactly the same. What I'm going to do next is glue the neck. So the tabs are equal, knowing that this is going to be a pretty crucial point of stability. I'm going to put more glue than I probably should need to, but get every little angle here. Before I put the head on, make sure that this glue is set. Reason being is it's such a small little point that is on here. Another thing I would encourage is to paint everything separate keep this piece and this piece separate because it's much harder to get into the gap here when it's all assembled. So it's easier to hold and paint the head and paint the body all separately too. So this is coming together pretty quick, as you can see, once you kind of have a general idea of what needs to be done. So the robot kit here, once I have these in, just the neck and the head will be ready to be joined. If you want, do the same thing, get a razor blade and just kind of scrape away the tiny bit of paint that's here and here. Cool, we'll move on to gluing the arms, letting those set, give you some tips on how to make those work. Okay, let's glue the arms in. The arms, because there's nothing resting on them like the legs and the neck, the main thing you want to be concerned with is just gluing it in enough. So do the front, top, side, and bottom. The end piece doesn't touch anything. If you want to, you can. So basically, I decided I'm going to have his right arm down. And then it's okay with excess glue, that's fine. Again, get your razor, any flat razor, anything that could get in there, and just kind of scrape away whatever glue excess. This glue is much harder to sand after the fact than it is to just clean it up. A small little skimming of glue is not a problem, but basically that's kind of what you're looking for, is a connection similar to that, no gap on the body. And then it's easy to do just to leave it right there and move on to the other arm. There's not a lot of tension on these arms, are pretty light. This is 1/8 inch birch. So I'm just gonna get, the main point is the connection points inside, but also the connection points to the body, because the joint going in may be a little tiny bit loose, like a 1/64 of an inch loose. So just gonna take this, slide that in there, same way. These arms are pretty snug as it is, even before, but now with glue and just a little material on there, it really enhanced. So I'm going in here with the razor blade, just clearing out any sort of excess. And there it is. That is a completed body ready for a head to be attached. This is the final assembly part. So basically, if you look, this just snaps right into the square of the head. It's a very, very tight fit. So just kind of jiggle it back and forth till it goes in there. It's a beautiful friction fit that happens. You're more than welcome to glue the head. Like I said, it's better to leave it unglued until you're done painting and then assemble after. Remember, all the joints that you leave open, do not paint them over because the tolerances are that tight. But here is the completed robot. You know, this is kind of what to expect in the final. Make sure all the joints are nice and tight, no major gaps, and have fun, sand away, share what you create. I love seeing what you guys come up with. I'll be sanding and painting this one as well. Another thing to keep in mind with the face, take out the panel when you're painting, because if you get paint on that, it's a lot harder to keep it perfect. You do have two sides, so if you do get paint on it and you can't get it off, flip it around, slide it in. It's equal on the both. So good luck, everybody. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy.